planting the very last of our main crop potatoes in this bed. I have to say, when I extended this bed over the winter, I did get asked by a few people, you know, why are you extending it? Why do you need so much space? And I was asked, was it because I wanted to grow more vegetables to sell, or what the deal was? And I just wanted more space at the time, and what I wanted was just the flexibility that more space gives you. I like to, you know, experiment. I like to experiment a lot, but I am so unbelievably glad that I did, because I've already filled it, and there's so much more still to go in there. I don't know how I'm going to find the space for it, but anyway, I thought I'd do a quick video today just to bring you up to date on where I am with all my vegetables and all my planting. It's been a really funny year so far. I think in terms of the weather, I think we're a good, you know, in terms of the natural world, I think we're a good 3 weeks or a month behind where we were this time last year. All of our crabapple trees you see through here, they're all in full blossom, and I think by this time last year all the blossom would have dropped for sure. But I mean, it's a beautiful sight, this beautiful row of crabapple trees. But like I said, I think we're maybe even a month behind in the garden where we were last year, and I've had all of the usual issues, you know, a few problems just like everybody else. We lost some of our seedlings to pest, to a rat that was in our polytunnel and ate a good portion of our seedlings at one point. We've all been suffering with the frost, haven't we, and getting things out, but things have really turned a corner. I know I'm wearing a coat and a hat today. It's not that warm, but it's definitely not cold, and critically the overnight temperatures are finally up at a decent amount. They're sort of 7 or 8 degrees overnight at the moment, which is, oh, it's what we've been waiting for. So one of the things I'm going to do today is I'm going to clear up what's left of my my frost protection here for the potatoes, and in places they need a bit of weeding. But these are potatoes I put in super early, and we had a frost just last week and it did bite them. It bit them fairly hard, but they're already coming back. You can see the frost damage, and they're all showing signs of frost damage, but they're also showing, all of them, this amazing new new fresh growth to replace anything that's been damaged. So I'm really happy with that. I think the grass has really enjoyed the frost covers as well, so once we get that off and we can weed them back, we'll really see where we are. But you can see down here, these are some of our first earlies, Maris bards, and even the ones with protection on got a little bit bit. However, you will remember I put them in super early, so I'm okay with that. Some of the ones that didn't have any protection are also doing okay. I'm really quite happy. But where I've seen a huge difference is the ones that I planted in buckets in the polytunnel. If you'll remember when I put those in, and I'm not sure when I put them in, but it was too early, really, most people would say. I'll have to check the video of when I did them, and maybe I'll put a little note down there saying when it was. But look, these guys are desperately in need of covering up. So we've got first early and second earlies here, and they have been covered once and they've come back up through again. Look how well they're doing. And in this polytunnel, which is in need of a bit of a weed as well, I've kept on top of weeds on most of the beds, but there's a few places that are in need. And in here we've got tomato plants which are in the ground in their final destinations, and then this side will be cucumber plants. Of course, it's quite warm in there. Just after a few seconds in there, then I'm going to have to take my coat off. Okay, so before we move away from potatoes, I'll just give you an exact overview of where we are. We've basically given up probably a third, maybe even more than a third of our total growing space to potatoes, because they're such an important crop, particularly this year, because of my challenge that I'm doing in September, where I'm only going to be eating things that we could produce ourselves. So it's really important that we have plenty of potatoes. Now, I've only just put the last of them in, and they might be a bit late going in to harvest for September, but we needed them nonetheless. So up here we've got 2 rows of first earlies and second earlies, one of each, right to the back of the bed, and then we've got more first and second earlies down here in the front portion of the bed, and then pretty much this whole quarter here in between these 2 paths is potatoes. Now I do have a row of greyhound cabbage down this side as well, squeezed in next to the path, And I've also got some fast growing crops that I've interplanted. In between these 2 rows of potatoes this end, we've got a row of lettuce. And then back there, we've got some garlic. We've got some more garlic elsewhere on the bed, but we've got a few garlic plants in just there. So to finish explaining this half of our vegetable plot, we've got our Egyptian walking onions, and look at how well they're doing. They're just coming on fantastically well. I need to do a tiny bit of weeding just around this mother clump. I call it the mother clump. This is our original 5 plants, of which 3 we got to actually grow for us. We planted 5 in the shape of the 5 dots on a dice, 4 in the corners of a square and 1 in the middle, and we got a diagonal line that came up. So there was 1 there and 1 there that didn't. Got a little bit of weeding to do down here, just around there, but last year was our first year of cropping these, and we transplanted a load of the bulbs out here, and they have populated the rest of this bed. So from just 3 viable bulbs, we've populated this whole bed in around a year and a bit. So this is going to give us a tremendous number of onions. Each one of these stalks is going to produce a cluster of little mini onions, a bit like shallots. And then we haven't pulled any of the main bulbs yet, but if we do, there'll be a bigger bulb at the bottom as well if we want to pull them. It's a balancing act between populating the bed and obviously harvesting those main roots, but we'll definitely be taking some of them this year. Now in here we've got our chard, as you're probably already aware. We're actually going to take a lot of this out soon because we just need the space. We don't eat enough chard during the summer and autumn when we've got all our other amazing crops that we need this much. So we'll keep some of it because I want to see if I can get it to just grow year on year. But what we'll do is at the end of this season, or towards the end of this season, we'll plant another row of it along that edge after those potatoes have come out, because my goal, as I've mentioned a couple of times, is to use plants like this as basically a weed barrier at the side of the bed. You can just see how densely they grow, quite happily that densely, and you know, grass isn't going to permeate across that line of chard. So that's my plan there. You'll probably have noticed also we've got a couple of mole traps because a mole has come through and undermined all of my vegetable bed, and it's really frustrating. It's just, yeah, really frustrating. I'm trying to deal with that, but we shall see. So then next, what do we have here? Let's have a look. So we've got a couple of rows of beetroot. Now some of these have been had by the pigeon when they were a little bit younger, but as we go down to the back, you'll see we've got quite a lot doing really well, and I've got more beetroot in the polytunnel to go in today. So we'll probably bring them out and use them to fill in the space in these rows. And then next to that, we've got 2.5 rows of onions. And these are the onions that I got free from Free Cycle, if you remember. And they're all doing brilliantly well. So we've got 2.5 rows of those. And then next to those, we've got a block of cos lettuce just here, which you can probably make out. And here we have one sad Lakeland lettuce, which is the only one that survived the transplanting. I bought some seedlings back along because they were a ridiculously low price. I can't remember what, but I couldn't resist buying them. I put them in a row up here. We've got one left. I hate transplanting lettuce. I always lose so many. If you've got any tips for that, please let me know. They're just such weedy plants. Just there, if you can make out that little label there, that says purple teepee, and that's a row of little bush beans, little purple French beans. An amazing plant. Just purple teepee and Sinesta, dwarf French beans. For us, in our environment and our soil and everything, they just work amazingly well. I'm so happy with them. So that's what we grow. And I've got quite a decent little row of them up there. And then just behind them, we've got some calabrese broccoli, which is a slower crop. So you'll notice I've squeezed the beans in between the onions and the calabrese, because the calabrese is quite a long crop. The beans will be quite quick, and the onions don't take up much space. So that's how I've managed to get them in. It's all about maximising my space at the moment, because I'm just trying to put too much in the ground. In here I've got a bit of space because we've got some failed sowings. A few. We've got a row of radish which never came to anything. I think I must have put them in far too early. Bit of a hopeful one really. And we've also got a row of broccoli up through here. And again, this is a calabrese broccoli, and they are still in there, and I'm not really sure if they're going to survive or not. I'm not pulling them out. We'll let them do whatever they want, but we're going to use this space that's been left by the failed sowings and use it for planting some of our other crops out that we have. So back here we've got some more cabbage. We've got some red cabbage and some white cabbage there, and what I've done, I've actually used radish out here as markers around some of the plants to remind me where they are. And along the back here you can see our broad beans. At that end we've got our broad beans. Next to that we've got a load of peas which run through to about here, and then we switch to borlotti beans. We've got a load more climbers to come out and fill the rest of our canes. So we have another row of beetroot that we've direct sown through here, which haven't come up yet. In the front we've got a patch of perpetual spinach. Then we've got our perennial garlic through here, the last of our spring onions, and again more radish surrounding what have we got here? Surrounding a couple of cauliflower plants, again to demark them. So we've got some space in this bed here to plant in some blocks. We've got some space in there to plant rows around the survivors of some transplants, and other than that we're really struggling for space, particularly for bigger plants. It's my courgettes I'm really thinking about and wondering where I'm going to squeeze them in. I might end up putting them sort of in front of the paths and let them trail out onto the grass, although that does cause some mowing issues, obviously. We shall see. And I'm just trying to think what else I've got to share with you here. I think that gets you all up to speed on the vegetable bed. Let's go have a look in the polytunnel next, the second polytunnel. We've got a polytunnel that I've already showed you, which is going to be for growing our tomatoes and our cucumbers. That's this one here next to our strawberry patch. Oh, and look, at this time of year, no garden trip would be complete without showing you our asparagus. So I planted 8 asparagus plants here almost 3 years ago, and we have 7 which have made it all 3 years and are providing asparagus. Look at that. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So yeah, really happy with that. There's enough there for a small meal for a family or a big meal for a one. So we'll probably harvest them and have them with that chicken that I harvested yesterday. Let's get in here and have a look. One thing that's really surprised me this year actually is how much the frost has gotten inside this polytunnel. It's killed these tomatoes back here, and it's had a nice go at my courgettes as well. I've pulled off the damaged leaves from most of them, and we're just going to see how we get on. It's a shame because I'd already lost one lot of courgettes to the rat, but as you can see we've got quite a lot going on in here. So we're growing so much veg this year that I'm less concerned with making sure we've got enough courgettes to freeze some, which we normally do. And I say that to say that so long as we have 4 courgette plants, I think that's going to be plenty for us to have all the courgettes we want during the season. It just means we won't have any spare to set aside or to sell. But I think we will get more than 4 plants, but we shall see. But it's also about finding the space for them now. But we've just got so much else that we're growing this year that I think in terms of fresh veg, you know, we're going to be fine. I've got all my sweet corn in. Now I've planted 3 sweet corn in each of these pots. So we've got about 25, 30, maybe a bit more of each variety. We've got 2 different varieties, Conqueror and Goldcrest. These are in the polytunnel to give them a head start, and then we'll get them out when they're a few inches tall. We've got some of our pepper plants coming up, some of our chili pepper plants coming up, which is really exciting. Some runner bean plants back there. We've got our chickpea sprouts and our pea sprouts back there. Down here we've got our basil plants. I've had no parsnips germinate this year, and I know they're quite fussy, but yeah, not a single one. Got loads of spring onions down here, which are pretty much ready to go out if I can find space for them. We've got some succession planting of all sorts of different things. We've got some tomato plants coming up down here. We've got lots of cucumbers. We've got just about the right amount. I say lots, about the right amount, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 9 cucumber plants that are looking pretty decent, and 2 or 3 more just coming up out the soil now. So that's more than enough for our needs. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Brussels sprout plants, which again is enough for our needs. I love Brussels sprouts. I love them. One of my favourite vegetables, but I'm the only person in my house that really enjoys them. Everybody eats them at Christmas, but other than that, it's a bit of a struggle. So we don't need many. 5 plants is plenty. That's a really long season crop, so I'm not sure where we'll squeeze them in when they're ready to go out. But hopefully we're going to get a bit of a turnover now in the garden, and once we've moved some of our plants that are already out there, some of our chard and probably some of our perpetual spinach as well, the really old ones, then that's going to free up quite a lot of space for us. Really surprised as well this year, I've had hardly any leeks germinate. I planted in every single one of these modules, and I've probably only had about 10% success rate, which is unusual. We've got asparagus peas, which I'm really excited for, growing for the first time. We just planted last week some swede, which again is thinking a bit longer term. We've got lots of succession planting going on, more beetroot. These are the beetroot plants which we'll be planting out at some point very, very soon to fill in those gaps. More herbs, more peppers down through here. We've got our pumpkin plants, all 6 of them doing really well. Some honey boat squash, which I've not grown before, and as you can see the frost has had a nibble at these as well. Some more cabbage, succession planting cabbage, and some cauliflower here. So these are all things to go in as and when we've got space, succession planting, etc. The other thing I've been sharing with you is what we've been doing in these pots. I've got something quite exciting to show you actually about some Jerusalem artichokes in here, but we'll get to that shortly. So we've got some potatoes in this first 4 or 5 here, and you can see they're just starting to appear now out of the ground. In here we've got some pea shoots, so it's a bit of a succession planting idea really. What I've done, so in the polytunnel I've got that pot which was really densely sown with peas, and basically we're growing them like cress, and we'll just snip the whole thing off and those pea shoots will go in salads. Now I planted 3 pots. You'll notice probably there was only 2 in there. Well, 1 we've taken into the kitchen and we're already using like that. Well, and the same, exactly the same process I did with the chickpeas. Well, out here what we've done is we've sown more of the same, but slightly more space has been given to the plants. The idea being we're actually going to allow these to develop as plants, but we're still going to harvest the shoots as they grow. So the idea being that these plants will take over in terms of a crop from those guys when they're done. Now our first sowing of carrots is in the polytunnel there in a pot, and they're probably an inch or 2 high, so it's really slow progress this year for so many things. We don't have any heated space, so everything we're doing is, although it's in a polytunnel, it's still been getting quite cold in there. But out here we've got our first outdoor sowing of carrots, and in here our second. So those guys will be ready first, and in here next, and then there. And we use a tremendous amount of carrots. It's one of the vegetables all our family loves. We use them in stocks, we use them raw in salads, we use them as batons for dipping and snacks. So they're a really versatile vegetable, and like I say, we eat a tremendous amount of carrots. We could probably eat them 4 or 5 meals a week for 52 weeks of the year without any complaints. So maybe even more than that when I'm thinking about how versatile they are. So we eat a lot of carrots. So these guys here, they're planted really close together, and what that's going to do is going to give us loads and loads of edible thinnings. So we're going to be thinning the first carrots when they're about that big, and they will be just tossed with the greens straight in a salad. Looks really great, looks a bit fun and nice, and tastes great too. So that's what we'll be doing with those. And then back here, I really wanted to talk to you about this pot. So as you'll know, I collect fruit and veg from a fruit and vegetable shop, and I won't lie, occasionally I've been known to plant some of the things that come back with it. And some of our main crop potatoes are potatoes that came back for pig food. Some of our garlic is, well, in fact, all of our garlic that I've ever sown here, I think that's how we've got it. And this year we've done something new, and those are Jerusalem artichokes. We had a load of Jerusalem artichokes in one of the pig bins. I'll just dig one up. So I thought, well, I may as well sow those, and I'd like to sow them in the ground. They do spread, and you know, unless you get every single one up, they're quite difficult to stop spreading. That doesn't concern me, and I don't know why it concerns so many other people. If you've had a problem with Jerusalem artichokes, please let me know, because where we have got some growing, they've been really easy to keep in check just by, you know, pulling up the plants as they, you know, as they come up. If they come up somewhere you don't want them, I just pull the plants and they haven't spread. So let me know what the issue is if you've ever struggled with them. I genuinely would love to know. But anyway, for now, because I didn't have time, I didn't have space on the vegetable bed and I didn't have time to plan anywhere else, I thought, well, this big pot will do just the job. So I've planted, I don't know, 7 or 8 tubers in here, maybe more. And that's going to hopefully populate this bed with a load of Jerusalem artichokes that we can really easily harvest at the end of the season. So, next jobs for me. Well, some of our perpetual spinach is just starting to run to seed now, so that's destined for the animals, along with some of the chard. Now, I'm not in any urgent rush to do that. I'll do that over the next couple of days, as and when I need the space. I'm going to also clear up the little tunnels that have been protecting or semi-protecting some of the potatoes. A little bit of weeding, although not much. I think I've kept pretty well on top of it. But that brings you guys all up to speed with where we are with our annual vegetables. We're far behind where we were yesterday. I'd love to have a heated greenhouse. I haven't come up with a solution for that problem that fits our budget and desire to use where we can, you know, solar and wind energy in the garden. So I'll still be thinking on that. Maybe you've got some ideas. Oh, sorry, I was going to say that's all, but it's not, because of course my wife's garden as well. So she's got finally put some beans out. She's got some more beetroot back there. She's got carrots coming out, peas coming out. Now, she works in a school and sometimes they do some planting at school. There was a cabbage plant, unwanted, neglected, left over, that's going to seed, and she's brought it back, planted it there, and the idea is to harvest some of the seeds. So I thought that was quite a nice idea. And of course she's got an awful lot more going on back there. But that brings you up to date with everything that we've got going on in terms of our annual vegetables. Thanks ever so much for watching. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. You can do that right now. Press that like button. Leave me a comment down below. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.